Hey, I'm Liv. Welcome back to my channel Endless Pages and welcome to today's video, which is my Read the World Challenge for 2026. This TBR challenge was created by my friend Tracy last year and she invited other people to participate. Basically, the aim is to read 2 books from every continent, and this is just a fun way to diversify your reading and explore books from countries and authors that you might not see on your shelf every day when you're in the bookstore. So yeah, the aim is to really diversify your reading. I did semi-participate in this in 2025. I kind of failed right at the end of the year with the last couple of books, but I still had a lot of fun participating and found a couple of new favorite books as well from the challenge. So I decided that I had to participate again in 2026 because yes, I should absolutely always be diversifying my TBR. Let's start with the continent of Asia, and the first book for this TBR, which is A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. I read this author's other book, The Kite Runner, in, I don't know how old I was, sometime in high school, and was absolutely moved by the book, absolutely adored it. It was a very confronting but very beautiful read, and that book was set in Afghanistan like this book is, and that book was about the invasion of Russia in Afghanistan. Yeah, it was a confronting read, and I've always wanted to read more of this author's stuff. I've read their what was it called? Sea Prayer, their little short story, and that was quite beautiful as well. So this one is a long time coming, to be honest. A Thousand Splendid Suns, we follow Mariam, and when she's 15 she's sent to Kabul to live and marry this older man. 2 decades later we meet Layla, who is 15 as well, and because of a tragedy she's sent to live with Mariam in Mariam's household. By this time there's lots of growing tension in Kabul, and Mariam and Layla begin this beautiful friendship that grows and they really bond. And then the Taliban comes to rule over Afghanistan and there is violence in the streets of Kabul, and the women's endurance is tested beyond their worst imaginings. I'm just going to read the blurb for the last little bit because it says it's better than I ever will. So, yet love can move people to act in unexpected ways, lead them to overcome the most daunting obstacles with startling heroism. In the end, it is love that triumphs over death and destruction. A Thousand Splendid Suns is a portrait of a wounded country and a story of family and friendship, of an unforgiving time, an unlikely bond, and an indestructible love. This book, like I said, is a long time coming. I was absolutely moved in high school when I read The Kite Runner, and I didn't really know much about that time in history, especially the more Russian invasion of Afghanistan. So I feel like I get to kind of educate myself a little bit when I'm reading these books as well. Yeah, they are technically historical fiction, so I am learning as well when I read these books. But yeah, like I said, long time coming, and this should be definitely priority top of the Read the World Challenge TBR, I think. Next up for the continent of Asia, we have The Midnight Timetable by Bora Chung and translated by Anton Her. The country for this book being South Korea. This is, I just think, a bunch of like horror ghost stories, short stories. These are not just mere ghost stories, they're warnings, lessons, or perhaps confessions. I won this from a bookstore giveaway, Amplified Bookstore, which if you're Melburnians, you'll probably know this bookstore. If not, you might not know them as well. They are a Melbourne based, but they also do online, BIPOC bookstore, and they only hold titles from BIPOC authors. I got to visit their store last year for the first time in Melbourne and it was great. But yeah, I won this in a giveaway, so I'm very excited to read this, and I won this like the literal day I think I started thinking about my TBR for this video, so it had to go on there. It was perfect. Let's move on to the continent of Africa, and our first book for this continent is Pet by Nweke Emezi. This is a YA fantasy magical realism kind of book. We have 2 best friends. We have Jam, is that her name? Yeah, Jam and Redemption. They've been told their whole lives that monsters aren't real. And then one day this monster kind of claws its way out of a painting that Jam's mother has. And they have to kind of come to terms with the fact that monsters are actually real and everything they've been told is basically a lie. And then the monster claims it's here to hunt this kind of creature that is lurking in Jam's friend's Redemption's house. The second book for the continent of Africa is The Chasad Heir, and this is by Sarah Hashim. This duology, this is the first book in a duology. This duology has blown up all over TikTok over the last couple of months. Like, it's all anyone's talking about. It's absolutely blown up. And it sounds so up my alley. My colleague and I have quite similar tastes when it comes to fantasy, and she was saying that this would so be my taste, enemies to lovers. She knows my fantasy taste well. So I'm so hyped to read this. This is the first in the Scorched Throne duology. So I'm just going to read the blurb for this one because it's too much to memorize. But basically, 10 years ago, the kingdom of Jasad burned. Its magic outlawed, its royal family murdered down to the last child. At least, that's what Sylvia wants people to believe. The lost heir of Jasad, Sylvia, never wants to be found. She can't think about how Nizal's armies laid waste to her kingdom and continues to hunt down its people. Not if she wants to stay alive. But when Aaron, the Nizal heir, tracks a group of Jasadi rebels to her village, staying one step ahead of her death gets trickier. In a moment of anger, Sylvia's magic is exposed, capturing Aaron's attention. Now, to save her life, she will have to make a deal with her greatest enemy. If she helps him lure the rebels, she'll escape persecution. A deadly game begins. Sylvia can't let Aaron discover her identity, even as her hatred shifts into something more. Soon, Sylvia will have to choose between the life she wants and the one she's left behind. The Scorched Kingdom is rising, and it needs a queen. So this is an Egyptian-inspired debut fantasy. A fugitive queen strikes a deadly bargain with her greatest enemy and finds herself embroiled in a complex game that could resurrect her scorched kingdom or leave it in ashes forever. So my colleague and I at work have discussed enemies to lovers at length, and we both agree that we like actual enemies to lovers. Like, I want to kill you before I love you. Not like I hate you for a couple of minutes and then we're in love. She told me that this is proper enemies to lovers, like proper, like I want to murder you. So I'm very hyped for this. I trust her taste. I trust when she says enemies to lovers, she means it's actually enemies to lovers. And I'm just, yeah, all I can say is I'm so hyped to read this book. Moving on to the continent of Europe, we have A Man Called Uva. I think that's how you say that, by Fredrik Backman. And this is for the country of Sweden. There's not a lot to say about the blurb of this book. I think the general premise is we have a really, really grumpy old man who kind of hates life, hates his neighbors, hates everyone. And then this family with two daughters moves in next door and kind of turns his life upside down, maybe causes a little bit of chaos for him. And I think it's literally just a tale of friendship between the man and these new neighbors. Don't know how I'm going to feel about this book. I do have a copy of it somewhere. I genuinely can't find it. I searched for like 20 minutes and gave up. It's in this room somewhere, but I bought this at a charity like book sale because I recognize the author. He's obviously a very well-known author. I don't know if this will be my kind of book, but we'll give it a red hot go, and if I don't like it, there's definitely other Fredrik Backman books that I would like to give a go to. Next up we have The Lake of the Dead. This is by Andre Bjørk and translated by James D. Jenkins for the country of Norway. So from what I can tell, this is the second book in a series. I don't know, I can't read the series name. It's not in English. I'm assuming it's in Norwegian. But from reading the blurb, it doesn't seem like I need to have read anything to understand this book. So we're just going to give this book a go. This is a mystery horror book. So set in the deepest part of the Norwegian woods stands Dead Man's Cabin, the site of a tragedy a century earlier when Tore Gruvik, in a fit of madness, murdered his sister and her lover, beheading them and throwing their corpses into a nearby lake before drowning himself to join them in death. Ever since, it is said, anyone who stays at the cabin is possessed by Gruvik's spirit and driven to drown themselves in the lake. What's more, Gruvik's restless ghost has been seen by many of the local people, prowling the woods by moonlight. Bjorn Werner, a young writer from Oslo, ignored the old superstitions and rented out Dead Man's Cabin as a quiet spot to finish his book. Now he has disappeared, and the evidence suggests he threw himself in the lake in a fit of madness. The police write it off as suicide, but his friends are not so sure. Kai Kai Buggy, Bjorn's psychiatrist, believes in the suicide explanation, while Private Detective Harold Grand thinks it's a case of murder, and Gabrielle Mork, an expert in the occult, is certain that the darker and otherworldly forces are at play. They travel to unravel the mystery of their friend's terrible fate, but not all of them will return alive from their stay at the Lake of the Dead. I'm really excited to read this. It sounds really good, but again, I'm a little bit intimidated. This book is from 1942, so maybe I might struggle with the writing style a little bit, as it is a little bit of an older book, but the blurb says it was voted the all-time best Norwegian crime novel. Next up, we have the continent of North America. First book for North America is Gods of Jade and Shadow. This is by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and this is for the country of Mexico. So I have read a book from Silvia Moreno Garcia before, that being Mexican Gothic, which is kind of a horror kind of book, and I did think at the time I rated it like 3 stars and was like deeply disturbed by it, but upon reflection, that's what it was meant to do. The book was meant to deeply disturb me. I just didn't like the kind of content they had in there to do that, and if I had a trigger warning going in, I probably would have been better prepared for it, but it was super creepy. So I am keen to check out this author's writing again, so that is why I put Gods of Jade and Shadow on this TBR. This is described as a fairy tale type story inspired by Mexican folklore. The Mayan god of death sends this young woman on this harrowing, dangerous journey. It's set in the Jazz Age, and we follow a main character, Cassiope, I think I'm butchering that, but they are too busy cleaning the floors of her wealthy grandfather's house to listen to any fast tunes. Nevertheless, she dreams of a life far from her dusty small town in southern Mexico, a life she can call her own. Yet this new life seems as distant as the stars until the day she finds a curious wooden box in her grandfather's room. She opens it and accidentally frees the spirits of the Mayan god of death, who requests her help in recovering his throne from his treacherous brother. Failure will mean her demise, but success could make her dreams come true. In the company of this strangely alluring god, and armed with her wits, she begins an adventure that would take her on a cross-country odyssey from the jungles of Yucatan to the bright lights of Mexico City and deep into the darkness of the Mayan underworld. This sounds fun. I'm back in my kind of Percy Jackson era at the moment, so I'm so up for reading more about different types of gods. It's just absolutely what I'm in the mood for. I'm really excited to read this book. I think this is a standalone fantasy as well, which I'm excited about because I just start way too many fantasy series and never finish them, and another goal of mine is to finish more series in 2026. So adding to that list of new fantasy series is probably not the best idea. So I'm excited for a standalone fantasy, and I'm excited for the Mayan underworld and gods and mischief, I'm sure. Our second book for the continent of North America is As Long as the Lemon Tree Grows by Zufla Katu. This is set in Syria. We follow our main character, Salama, who a year ago before the revolution in Syria watched her brother get married and wondered when she will have her chance at love. She works at a hospital and she is kind of alone, and all she has left is Layla and Layla's unborn baby. So she also has this hallucination of this guy, and it's kind of a symptom of the horrors that she's experienced living in Syria and working at the hospital in Syria. Every day this hallucination tells her to leave, and every day she refuses. And then she meets this guy called Keenan. He wants to stay and risk his life for everything their country could have been. I've heard absolutely wonderful things about this book. I've heard that the writing is just breathtakingly beautiful, so I'm keen to get into this one soon. I also just want to show you guys the cover close up because it's stunning. Moving on to the continent of South and Central America, we have the book Incendiary by Zoraida Cordova, and this is for the country of Ecuador. We have a main character who is called Renata. She is this thing called a memory thief, and she was basically used by the king of this country to carry out his wrath. And then that kind of resulted in the death of thousands of her own people. She's then rescued and becomes what's known as a whisper, which is basically like a rebel spy. But all of the other rebel spies, you know, they have this hatred and distrust of her because she does have this memory thief power. And then the leader of her unit and this guy that she's in love with is captured, and she's tasked with completing his mission. So she has to embed herself in the politics of this royal court and uncovers a secret in her past that could change the fate of her entire kingdom. Yes, so this does sound very typical YA fantasy kind of plot, but I'm going to give it a red hot go, and I did end up putting it on the list despite my worries of it being too YA, because it did sound like a fun read, and again, the aim is to diversify my reading and maybe I'll find a new author that I love. Next up we have The Alchemist. This is obviously for the country of Brazil. This is a classic. Is it a classic? Yeah, it's technically a classic, right? That I've always been kind of curious about. I think it does have a fantasy kind of element in this book. So this combines magic, mysticism, wisdom and wonder into an inspiring tale of self-discovery. We follow the story of a shepherd boy who yearns to travel in search of worldly treasure. His quest will lead him to riches far different and far more satisfying than he ever imagined. His journey teaches us about the essential wisdom of listening to our hearts, recognizing opportunity, and learning to read the omens strewn along life's path, and most importantly, following our dreams. I think the blurb sounds really good. Will I struggle with this book? Probably. Like I said before, I do struggle with the classic kind of style writing, but I will give it a go. And yeah, I want to read more classics, or at least attempt to read more classics, so hence why The Alchemist is on the list. Time to talk about The Final Continent and the final two books. So The Final Continent is obviously Oceania, and for that we have an Indigenous Australian book, This All Come Back Now. This is the very first anthology of written by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, the very first anthology of speculative fiction. So this is about all the things that have been taken from First Nations people that is collectively mourned or that they have attempted to recover and revive. So the blurb says, stories summoned, some writers summon ancestral spirits from the past, while others look straight down the barrel of potential futures, which will always end up curving back around to hold us from behind. So this centers and celebrates communities and culture. It's a love letter to kin and country, to memory and future thinking. And it is by a bunch of different Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander authors. So I've heard really good stuff about this, and I have been wanting to read more Indigenous Australian works because I am Australian myself, so I think it is important for me to read Indigenous/First Nation work. Last up we have Quiet in Her Bones by Nalini Singh, and this is for the country of New Zealand. This is a thriller set in New Zealand. We follow this super wealthy socialite called Nina, and she went missing with $250,000 in cash. 10 years later her bones show up in this forest that's kind of next to this rich neighborhood where all these elite people have been living for decades. So it's about uncovering what happened to Nina in this kind of neighborhood where everyone has these dirty kind of secrets. Her son that night heard a chilling scream, and he's determined to find out what happened to his mother. So he's determined to uncover the ugly truth that lives beneath the moneyed elegance, but no one is ready for the murderous secrets about to crawl out of the dark. Even the dead aren't allowed to break the rules in this cul-de-sac. This sounds really fun. I haven't heard of this author before, but as soon as I read the blurb, I was like, yes, absolutely, going straight on the TBR. This sounds like a lot of fun. That is my TBR for the 2026 Read the World Challenge created by my friend Tracy. So I'm so excited to give this another go in 2026. Like I said earlier in this video, I found quite a few gems from doing this challenge, and it is so fun to diversify your reading and see what's out there that you wouldn't normally maybe pick up or see around in your bookstores. So I'm so excited that I'm participating in this again, and I encourage you guys to join in too. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments below, have you read any of these books on my TBR? What did you think? And what is one diverse book that you are going to be popping on your 2026 TBR? Thank you again so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Give this video a like if you did, and subscribe if you would like to see more of my content. I will see you in whatever the hell I post next. Bye!